The receptionist's voice came through the intercom with unusual hesitation. "Sophia, your parents are here." For a second, the words didn't register as anything more than logistical information. People had visitors all the time. Clients, partners, vendors. My parents had never come to my office before, but there was no rule against it. "Send them in," I said. I expected awkwardness. I did not expect the envelope. My mother walked in first, posture rigid in that carefully assembled way she used when entering places she didn't fully approve of. My father followed, quieter, gaze drifting across the room as if searching for something he could recognize. They didn't sit. That was the first signal. My mother extended the envelope across my desk. Not handed. Extended, like an object being presented rather than offered. We thought it was better to do this formally. There are moments when your brain understands something before your emotions do. I saw the law firm's letterhead, the thickness of the paper, the clinical neutrality of the typography. Lawsuit. The word itself felt strangely theatrical against the backdrop of ergonomic chairs and framed certifications. I opened it slowly. Not to create tension, because disbelief has its own pacing. Claiming I misappropriated business assets. Derivative of family-funded venture, originating intellectual framework. Legal language is fascinating when you're not emotionally implicated. Dense, precise, oddly elegant in its detachment. Less fascinating when it attempts to rewrite your life. My mother spoke before I finished reading. "It's family money, Sophia." Her voice carried conviction, but beneath it sat something else, strain perhaps or urgency. "You stole his light. Not his company, not his assets. His light." I leaned back slightly. Of all the accusations I had imagined over the years, resentment, jealousy, disappointment, this particular phrasing had never occurred to me. My brother's light had always been the family's preferred mythology. He was the visionary, the natural entrepreneur, the one with instinct. I had been the practical one, reliable, supportive, useful. 6 years earlier, those roles had produced a meeting around my parents' dining table. Papers laid out with reassuring casualness. Words like protection, fairness, structure. "You understand this is just precautionary," my father had said. My brother had barely looked up from his phone. My mother had smiled in that soothing, managerial way. "It's better for everyone." I remembered the weight of the pen more clearly than the conversation. Back in my office, my mother continued. "He trusted you." That part was almost true. He had trusted me to stabilize what he didn't want to manage. Accounting inconsistencies, contractual gaps, operational drift disguised as creativity. When his business began collapsing under the gravity of its own optimism, I had stepped in quietly, not to take, but to contain. But containment rarely fits into family narratives built on heroism. I noticed then that my father still hadn't spoken. He stood near the window, shoulders slightly lowered, as if already anticipating exhaustion. "Do you really believe," I asked gently, "that this is what happened?" My mother's jaw tightened. "This isn't about belief. This is about what's right." "Right." Another flexible word, I laughed. Not sharply. Not mockingly. More from the strange symmetry of it. The familiarity of being judged through emotional logic while sitting behind a desk built on documented logic. I reached into the drawer. The folder had lived there for years. Not hidden, not displayed. Simply present, like insurance you hope remains unnecessary. I slid it across the desk. My mother frowned. "What is this?" "Something you forgot." She opened it with visible impatience. Then stopped. Silence altered the room faster than any argument could have. My father turned. My mother's eyes moved across the page, not quickly, but with the incremental recognition of encountering an old version of reality. Assignment agreement. Signature lines. Dates. Initials in familiar handwriting. My handwriting. Her handwriting. His handwriting. "You made me sign this," I said quietly 6 years ago. No triumph. No accusation. Just temporal alignment. My mother stared at the document as if it were behaving inappropriately. "That was different, was it?" My father stepped closer. I watched his expression change, not shock, not confusion. Something more subdued, the weary acknowledgement of a fact resurfacing exactly as it had been left. "I remember this," he murmured. Of course he did, he had been the one insisting on legal safeguards. My mother shook her head. That was to protect the family. "Yes. And this," I said softly, "is the family." The lawsuit suddenly looked less like an attack and more like a collision, two incompatible versions of history meeting in a room too small to contain both. My mother closed the folder. Her composure, so carefully maintained, showed its first visible fracture. "You're still benefiting from family resources." There it was. The real axis of conflict, not theft, not betrayal, but ownership of causality. My father spoke for the first time with something resembling firmness. "Margaret." Just her name, nothing else. Yet the tone carried unmistakable authority, the kind that emerges not from volume, but from institutional familiarity. He had spent decades negotiating with contracts, auditors, regulators. He recognized when a narrative had exceeded its jurisdiction. "This isn't a matter for litigation." My mother looked at him, then at me. For a brief moment, the certainty left her expression entirely, replaced by something rawer loss perhaps, not of money, of story. They left without resolution. No dramatic apologies, no reconciliations, only an uneasy redistribution of silence. After the door closed, my office felt unusually still. The lawsuit remained on my desk, its language unchanged, its implications now structurally fragile. What lingered wasn't satisfaction. It was the quiet discomfort of understanding that documentation doesn't heal emotional fractures. It merely defines their boundaries.